August. I welcome people that are online. I'll remind councillors and general public we are live streaming. Any questions around that? We do have a number of people speaking at public forum today, but before we do that, I would like Councillor Dalgety, would everybody stand please for the reading of the council prayer?
Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And for those watching online, please be aware that we are still looking to improve the technology over time, so please bear with us. And the Chief Executive, Peter Beggs, who's sitting beside me, makes the comment around the availability of the contractors able to do this, provide this service is probably the issue. In terms of public forum, we have a number, and James Russell will be the first speaker to that. James, if you'd like to come up the front here, please. So James, just a reminder about public forum. This is your opportunity to express your views to council or raise concerns. You have 10 minutes, including use of any questions that may be asked of you. How you use that time is completely up to you. And
good afternoon, councillors. I didn't expect to be speaking here, but I'm speaking. I've been very concerned about Owenite for some time, and I've actually been onto the mayor on a few occasions. I've been onto the councillors, some of the councillors the last time before, and Owenite to me is a disgrace. You go down the old main road that's called Makahini Lane now, I think it's called. It's got old posts, old cars, old everything, all down the side of the road. You go around I've just been down to Bolts today, you go around this town here, there's somebody had posts on the footpath here, old cars, they'll be taken away and crushed, destroyed or whatever. Why are we allowing Owenite to be such a hellhole? I've lived in Owenite for 70 years, not on the same side of the council, but I've been on the Kiwakia Council. But it's just an eyesore, and people go down to the cemetery. I've got a hell of a lot of relations down in that cemetery, and people say to me, they say, how the heck has Owenite got to this sort of stage? Some of them used to live in Owenite, and they cannot understand how posts are allowed to be on the side of the road, how all those old cars are allowed there. And I just sort of think we've got to do something about it. You go through Huddle, it's lovely. You go through Mangaweka, it's lovely. You get up to Udiku, it's lovely. Why can Owenite not be looking like that? And so that's all I've got to sort of say. There's a joker, Tim Young, who's lived there for years, and he wouldn't come today. He's been on to the councils, mayors, everything, and he's getting down to it. And I think that if we don't sort of look after people that lived in Owenite like that for years, his house is being devalued because nobody wants to go down and live in hellholes like that. That's all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. James, are you happy to take any questions that are raised? Yes. And just I will advise councillors that this will not be part of the time. The end of times, they'll allow up to the 10 minutes. I'll ask the Chief Executive to update councillors and yourself as to where this currently sits. Questions from councillors? Councillor Nigel Belsham, Deputy Mayor speaking.
Thanks, James, for coming along, and I certainly know of the area you're talking about. I've seen it just recently on the weekend. Do you know if any of the residents have put in service requests to have any of that area cleaned up?
No, to be quite honest, I don't really know everyone there. There's a lot of new people in Northern Ireland, you know. I actually sort of should have said about the machine shop that burnt down, and it's just been left like an eyesore. That's private land, evidently, and you can't do anything about it. But good. Rangitikis is keep Rangitiki beautiful, isn't it? I think it's motto or something or other. Is that what Rangitiki's motto is?
Yeah, well, that's certainly an opportunity, is to go through our service request process through bringing council.
So a question in this.
I'm just backing up the question with the statement.
Yeah,
so there you go. Thank you.
No, what can I do? I can do something, but I don't want to do something.
Councillor Jill Duncan.
Sorry, I don't know enough about this, and I'm tiny, so
Yeah.
I apologise about that. But can you just tell me, is this general public dumping, or is this actual residents of Owenite who are dumping outside their premises or nearby? Or...
To be quite honest, I don't know. It's all along that road there. You might sort of say, oh, why hasn't he gone and talked to them or anything like that? But I'm sort of more concerned about the people that have lived there for a while. We're just sort of getting to be a place where people are just living there and debasing the little town. Should be a nice little village.
A question from me. Are you aware that I and staff have been working on this very issue?
I realise that, yeah. Well, I hope you have. But it's just frustrating, really, to be quite honest.
Further questions from councillors before I ask the Chief Executive to update the current situation? No, I'll pass the Chief Executive.
Mr. Chair, my name is Peter Biggs. I'm the Chief Executive of the Council. I acknowledge what you've just said and that this has been a position for some time. Council has made it clear to me in the last number of months that there needs to be work done. And at the last meeting, it was stressed to me the importance of that. I would suggest that your influence was part of that in terms of your reporting. I have an email in front of me that was dated yesterday from my regulatory team. And if you're okay, I'll give you an update on where we're at with that. So there was a site visit, and bear in mind we do have a bylaw that allows us to enact some of these powers. We are aware that considerable progress has been made outside of number 63. It is now mostly cleared, barring a few branches. We've spoken with the property owner. He's indicated that the wood will be removed shortly, within the next week, and so will the ute body. Leaves the concrete poles. With the poles, he has asked to 2 weeks to arrange a tractor from one of the farmers to move into the back of his property. I have granted him that 2-week period because we have given him a certain period for which we require the remediation to take place. I've granted that 2-week extension for him to do that. Again, my regulatory manager has come back and said that in his view, he's done a lot of cleaning in the area. There does remain 2 car bodies at the entrance to number 3, and we are arranging for a contract for those on council expense.
Just to add to that, here, number 63 is also asked to meet with me, and I will meet with them.
I'm just not clear on the numbers and where you're talking
63 is closer to Tim's place.
Yeah, okay. Do you think I should go and help them to pick them up, or do you think I should stay away, or?
To pick up the concrete
Yeah,
posts.
well, I can pick them up.
And if you would like to help with that, if you've got a tractor, I'll even help you on the weekend if you want to do that. It's up to you as to in terms of public service.
Yeah, well,
I'm quite happy to do that.
I still see it. tidy it up. And I'm not going to tidy up all the night here. I've been doing that for years.
Maybe that's an offline conversation that you and I.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I didn't expect to be speaking, but very much interest.
Thank you very much. Could I ask staff please to get welcome Margaret Bales. While we're waiting for the next public forum to take place, I would like to note that we have representatives from the press here from both the Monitor and the Chronicle. And Lucy, I believe that it's your last time fronting council. So, and I understand you're moving to another position. We wish you well. Just before you start, first of all, I acknowledge Margaret as the previous mayor of Manawatu District Council. She's quite familiar with presenting, as you both are. So if you would mind doing your introductions, and again, you have 10 minutes to use that time as well.
Thank you very much, Andy. It's a real delight to be back in this room with you and to meet all the councillors. And of course, this is James Stewart, who we know to a number of you. I am the chair of the New Zealand Rural Games, and James is a trustee, and we're here in that capacity, but many of you will know him as president of Federation Farmers previously.
Yeah. Yes.
So why are we here? We're here because we've received a genuine invitation from this council to be involved and to share with you what the New Zealand Rural Games is all about. We are looking for a financial contribution to the local government share, which underpins this, and to give you the opportunity to promote the district at the next Games in 2021. We've got a little thing that Bonnie has very kindly offered to play you 30 seconds, just to give you a taste of what we're about. Don't worry. There you are, there's your Turakina. So these are the games that built the nation. And they're celebrated here. If we didn't have COVID, it's the Trans-Tasman National Championships. So James is going to tell you a little bit about what the games is about, and I understand you've got a PowerPoint printed copy. No? Okay, so then fine, thanks, Bonnie.
We'll make sure we have that.
So James will run you quickly through this, and then I'll tell you about what's in it for you while we're here.
So as you saw from the images up there, that's sort of pretty familiar for this district, those activities, fencing, shearing, all that sort of thing. This is the largest sporting event in the middle of New Zealand, and not only is it a sporting event, it's a platform for the urban to see the rural sector, those sort of activities. So, you know, we had great support for Super Raimu Lahore, you know, originally, and Sam Strawn as well. So it's an iconic fit for our region, and you know, contributing to the social, the wellness of our communities. And you know, more than ever at the moment, the primary sector is so important for New Zealand. You all know that, and we really need to have that understanding from the urban sector to see what's happening in the urban communities. It's a celebration of the sports of these not so well known sports, but these people take it really seriously. But it's also great for people, the public, to have a go at some of this stuff. And I know when I was with Federated Farmers, I was running the cowpack throwing, so it's sort of have a go stuff. I don't know why I get that. Probably because I was used to throwing a bit of that while I was at Federated Farmers. So you know, like there's 400 secondary school students engaged last year in the Clash of the Colleges. So this coming year we've got a sharing competition with the schools, and we know that we're needing people coming through to help on our farms for shearers. You know, there's a big coarse wool sort of push coming through from central government, which is great for our district. You know, being so big in the sheep flock in this region. There's a dinner that hosts 400 people on the Friday night before, and it's all about celebrating sports, the rural sector, and it really gives me pride when I'm there as a farmer, as they're standing up and just talking the rural district up, rural area. So it is a Horizons regional event, and so that's why we're here today as part of that Horizons region. And we get extensive media coverage, so TV1, TV3, the Project 7 Sharp, Country Calendar. So, you know, it gets a really good, you know, showing, so which is really important. So as I say, for our well-being in the rural community at the moment, and for people coming in to look at as things like shearing as a career. About 40,000, up to about 40,000 people attend the event through the 3 days. So a lot of them are town people.
So, as I said before, what's in it for you, and what are we here to ask you for? So we are here to ask you for a financial contribution of $5,000 towards the local government's contribution. Yes, I see some of you going like that. And because really to put these games on, they're nearly $1 million, just under $1 million. We have the trust, of course, never been paid, it's voluntary. We have 60% of that $1 million is in sponsorship from businesses. The people like Fonterra and Norwood, of course, big sponsors, Husqvarna, but we have about 48 smaller sponsors. We have opportunities for community trusts, but given the COVID situation, that figure will be down. We have an interest at the moment with national government that we're working on, and we're saying to them that if they are saying to me, people like Damien O'Connor, if there is support within the local government, then that's more reason why central government should support us. But for you in particular, the support that you would be able to give us is to have an opportunity to put Rangatiki on the map, the tremendous variety of villages that you've got through your district, and the agri sector that you contribute so massively to this whole region. And this is the platform for that agri sector to be showcased. This is the platform to enable them to attract young people from the secondary sector. As James has said, the Clash of the Colleges on the Friday really impressed Minister O'Connor this time. We're building on that to enable young people to get first-hand knowledge of what the jobs are in the rural sector. That's a very big one for us. So you can also have the opportunity to promote your district through a station on the actual park in the centre of Palmerston North there. Now, Tararua, they committed $5,000 last year. They've done this for 2 years now, and they are there promoting their district, and it was very beneficial to them. They are boots and all in it again. The other opportunity, as I said, to grow the pipeline of talent from your schools, in particular employment within that sector. And there's also the opportunity for Rangatiki iwi, the Ngāwariki and the Ngātiapa, to connect, because with pathways for employment, which we're also working alongside, supporting that through Talent Central, my other hat, and through the Regional Skills Hub, another hat. So, yes, that's it.
It's more than a sporting platform, a sporting event. It is a platform to celebrate agriculture in the district. So yeah, and Tararua, like Margaret said, has really embraced it, and they can tell value from that investment.
So questions from councillors. Councillor Belcher.
Yeah, thank you for coming along, James and Margaret. The Clash of the Colleges, did any of our Rangatiki colleges participate in that?
Last year?
Yes.
No, I don't think Rangatiki or Ngātawa were involved last year.
But the offer was sent out.
To be, yes, absolutely, definitely.
Councillor Hero.
Can you just tell me when the date is for the next, when it's coming up again?
I think it's roughly about this. It's the
About the middle of March.
second weekend of March, and it goes at the front of what we call the Agri-Food Week, and the seedy field days are at the end of it, so it's either the 9th or 10th. Originally, it began on Waitangi weekend in Queenstown, but for the last 5 years, the 6 years that we've had it here, we chose to put it at the beginning of that Agri-Food Week. Yes.
Thanks for presenting. I've been over to the games and really enjoyed them. Thought they were quite fun. But I'd be really interested to know what your numbers are for the event.
Oh, well, basically last year we were 35,000. We say between 30 and 40,000. We haven't got an accurate number because the whole of the square is open, and we've got people on clickers trying to give us a comprehensive number. We put a drone up to try and get the number. So, but it is the biggest rural event in here, and the point about it is the government saying they want us to keep it here because of our centre, middle of New Zealand.
So I'll just wait, Councillor. Is there any other councillors with a question? No, in that case, I will allow the question. Councillor Ash.
Thank you. You said 400 kids involved in
Yes.
the Kids Challenge. Kids things are absolutely fantastic, really exciting. What have you got in place to grow that? I'm looking at the
Well, we're
numbers.
starting right now to grow it. So what's happened is that clash of the colleges is now, we've got schools that are from all over the North Island who want to be part of that next time. And we're up to 400 registered already. So we're going to expand it and to have it more like a mini young farmers contest. So there's going to be physical as well as the mental exercises that they were doing in terms of trying to guess the weight of this or whatever that. And then the other part of it is for the first time ever in New Zealand, secondary schools sharing championships is being run on the Saturday morning. And that's already drawn interest from over 13 secondary schools, and some of whom may have to miss out. So that's the aspect that we are growing.
I think that's a real big
I
one.
do need to stop you there in terms of fairness to the other speakers. James, Mark, thank you very much. We understand your position well. Council will undoubtedly make a decision with regard to the request for funding at a subsequent time. And we will advise you. The only question that I'd ask is when do you need that decision?
Not immediately, Andy, but I'm going to leave you that email about Steve Hollander's involvement. A lot of people don't know what the trust gives into
I'll
the
leave that
region.
with staff to circulate.
Yeah.
with councillors.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. Councillors, can you just bear with me a minute and I'll work out who is going to speak next, because I suspect that might be a positive point.
We might now set it to auto 22. Yeah.
Yeah, can you come join us? Right, councillors, please. Thank you very much. The next speaker in public forum is Heather Thorby, and I presume speaking on branding. Branding.
Yes, yes. I've got papers here. I've got 12 copies, so if they want to
Yes,
give them.
just Heather, remind you of the rules around public forum. You have 10 minutes. How you use that time, including questions, your call.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate it. Sure. It's going to be a long day. Right, Heather, your time is now yours. Welcome back to Chambers.
Thank you very much, and nice to see a good turnout from the council. As I'm Heather Dorby from Bulls. I'm covering the proposed final design of the Bulls Town sign and the Bulls branding public consultation. I have serious concerns over the integrity of the public consultation process. The last two Bulls Community Committee minutes, July and February, carry no resolution on this matter. In other words, the motion, the mover, seconder, and the motion passed. Please refer to the Bulls Community Committee 21st of July minutes, part of your council agenda today. What started off as just a town entrance sign has grown to cover all image branding. The Bull logo, which is, constable, reliable, all that stuff, merchandise, which has financial implications for business and groups. The pamphlet circulated to the Bulls public closed at 5 p.m. on Monday, 4 days ago. Only two options, both with the same pictures, were given. No option for the status quo or different images or cost to ratepayers over the change. The results have not gone to the vote at the Bulls Community Committee. The pamphlet wording was suggested, and we invite you. The flaws in this consultation are the missed opportunities, the poor process, the lack of inclusiveness, no Bulls Community Committee resolution in the minutes, only 2 sentences report from a graphic artist who was at the 21st of July meeting in the BCC minutes. In conclusion, for the council to have integrity in the process of public consultation, there needs to be guidelines or a template for community elected groups to interact and survey their community. This must be visible and transparent to all. Second point, the process for the Bulls branding a logo images be returned to the Bulls Community Committee for open forum public consultation. Let this take place at the start of the next BCC meeting, and if the issue requires another pamphlet, then this should be done. That's the formal part of my submission. I just want to relate the two options that we were given with the same pictures. If you imagine your local cafeteria with your breakfast menu, one's got scrambled eggs, one's got fried eggs. Either way, you're having eggs. You're not even given the choice of whether you have continental breakfast, baked beans or whatever. It's about choice. We weren't given the choice. It's either optional B and you're having eggs. So thank you very much, and I'm quite happy to answer any questions.
I'll take questions. Councillors. Question again from Councillor Melsham.
Thank you, Heather. Do you speak on behalf of yourself or on behalf of a group of people?
No, I'm speaking purely as myself, and like others in the town, we filled out that option form and we put them in the box. And I was later told, no, your comments don't matter. We're only looking for A or B. And I said, well, where's the input from the community? Where are we able to have a say? And that hasn't happened because that was Monday night. So that I feel it's got to go back to the committee so the public can have a say, because this affects people with their financial obligations. There's businesses that use it on the logo, on stickers and staff uniforms and all sorts. So it's a bigger issue than we don't like that image, we want this one.
The question from me, Heather, were you aware of any workshops where there were a series of discussions around what could be featured? When you say talking about eggs versus eggs, as part of the brand, were you aware of any other workshops that looked at whether it was sausages or eggs?
No, not a thing. First I knew about it was this pamphlet coming in the mail, and I thought, geez, I better get into that. Something's not right. And then people, because I've got a history in books, started talking to me that they didn't feel comfortable, and I thought, well, I've got to say something. Some people are shy and quiet and not able to stand up and give the council a bollocking, for a better word, but I will, and I feel that's where I want to leave it, but I do think it needs to go back to the Bulls community, and council can help with this, with guidelines, with a template of how to engage and look at putting a brochure out. So you don't just get fried eggs and scrambled eggs, you get a menu.
Any further questions from council? No. Heather, thank you very much for your time. You succinctly put your position. Council will obviously listen to reports that staff have made or will make, and we'll come back to you with a decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good luck with the deliberation. Thank you.
The deliberations may not well happen today.
No, I'm not worried.
We're aware of that. So the next speaker in public forum, Helen Scully, and members of the Bulls and District Community Trust with Tyrone from the chair of. Are you speaking separately? Or are you speaking
We got
as a group?
one speaker.
Right.
We-
Okay. Thank you. So, would you like to come up and introduce yourself and how you use that time as yours? So you've got a clear indication of the rules around that. Would you like to say?
Good afternoon, I'm Trish Faulkner. I'm a member of the Bulls Community Committee. This is Tyrone Barker, who is our chairman of the Bulls Community Committee, and this is Helen Scully, who is chairman of the Bulls Community Trust.
Thank you.
Okay. Why are we here? We're here to talk about the Bulls signage, about the demonstrate our process and our findings, and confirm the actual use of the type of signage that we would like to be used. Next. Okay. IDC presented a possible new signage for the fronts of all entrances for into Bulls. At that particular meeting, there was the BCC and there was the trust on that day. So this is part of the past history for those who are not actually aware of what's happened in the past. The trust mentioned that they were actually looking at refreshing the brand of their Bulls, and we were actually looking at trying to figure out how to link the town and make it a really visible area that you can see the whole of Bulls. You go from the beginning to the end. It's not just the BP, it's not just the shops up the other end, but it's all connected. And so we started discussing about town linkages. We go to the next. So this was what we were presented as our first sign. We weren't keen on it because it looked more like a fertiliser sign or a Bull promotion sign, and there's quite a lot of them around, so that's why we didn't want to go with that. And we are Bulls, so we're not Bull, we're Bulls, so we wanted more than one Bull. And the second one, please. So we started to come up with ideas and concepts. We had a group gathering. This first one was presented as the running Bulls. To start with, that wasn't something that we were keen on. There was a bit of aggression going on there. And so we started to look at different options we could have and what we needed to consider. So the requirements we needed to consider was economic development, community, RDC requirements, work with the Bull branding, the Bulls, the style, and the font and the words, see what we could do. Next, thank you. So we asked IDC, what are our requirements? What do we have to stick to? What are the key things? So we were given this, and the yellow must stay, the bottom banner must stay, the logo. We asked if we could remove the go by. No, it's part of the branding. This is what we need, please. So that was our requirements. So from that point, we went forward. So the branding for Bulls to get this linkage is not just about a colour or a font or a size of something. It's about, branding is about how a community is felt about, how it links, how the feeling is that goes out when you look at a brand. If you look at something like KFC, you know the brand is red, but it does have particular elements that flow through the whole company throughout the whole New Zealand. So we wanted this to flow through the whole of Bulls, not KFC, that is. Next. So then we looked at our branding. What have we got? We're a little bit messy. We do have the signs, we have the Bulls. Our logos currently are all over the place, even though the central part's the same. So we wanted to do a bit of consultation. We also figured out black is us. And so the next, please. So we worked together, the RDC signage. We wanted pride in our town, visual links, iwi, influence and input, and town collaborations. Next, please. So this was our first attempt. To start with, we thought, yeah, that's pretty good. But we knew there was a long way to go. So we brought it to council because we knew that if we were going to do this, we were going to go slightly against what part of the signs were because we wanted that definite branding going through. So we brought it to council. So next, please. And we put forward a motion that we are able to adopt the amended Bulls Poundage entrance signage RDC template to allow the inclusion to completely a Bulls branding. So it's not just the little sign, the cartoon character, it's the whole branding of Bulls. And it was approved. So then we went away and we did some more things. Next, please. Over 120 iterations of ideas, drawings, paintings, sketches, vectors, photographs. It just went round and round and lots and lots. We didn't take this to the community at that point. It was hard enough for us to see with all these iterations that we were coming up with. So the next, please. Yep. So this is what we also then realised. Bulls is the Bulls that have been placed around the Bulls, around the town. We have found that we are repainting these every 3 months because they are so sat on and so used. So we wanted Bulls. This is now becoming our dominant feature there. So then we thought, well, maybe that's where we're going to. So next, please. So the realisation it is about the big Bull statues, and we focused more on those. The link was established. We finally figured out what we could link everything through. So design addiction came in and redrew some Bulls for us on a kind of possible silhouette. We decided that silhouettes was something that could be used universally across all mediums. Next, please. And we came up with these options next. So from the silhouettes, the different ways we could choose the letters, serif, sans serif, that's edges, not edges on letters. So then we thought, how can we apply it to the rest of Bulls to make it connect? So we thought flags with, so keeping to the Bull. So the Bull is the central part. Next, please. And 68% said yes. Could you please move forward? I'm a little bit behind here. 117 responses, 24 invalid, and they were judged by JP. And the next, please. And on your book, you have feedback that we got, so you can have a read of that because it's hard to read on screen. And the next, please. And so then we have the linkages of the branding. And so we would like you to approve us to use this sign
Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much. I'll take questions from a second. Just to give Councillor Belton a break for a second, I'll ask a couple of questions. First of all, were you aware, obviously, I suspect that you were, around the need for the yellow colours and so on,
Yes,
in terms of community regional brand? Were you also aware of previous discussions around what could go on to, in other words, you've had a number of the, someone else from the general public questioning the process.
Yeah.
Can you give me any responses to whether you think that was a fair process?
I believe it was a fair process. We did a lot of work behind it.
Okay, can I, this goes back to December 2018 when it first got put forward. So the original grant got put forward as a resolution, which came from the council as part of the long-term plan, and that's what we've been working on. We got approval to change the branding to from that original thing to work with the town and the new bull signage, which the trust has got ownership. So we worked well, hand in hand with the trust, and so this is the final outcome of that original meeting going back 2 years ago. And with, it's taken so long because with COVID and everything like that, it's we've had to get it right as well. So basically, it's from going back to that original approval from council to come back and present this. So this is the presentation from that original meeting which we had going back 18 months ago now.
Thanks. I'll take that as a yes. Councillor Dunn.
On that in mind, I'm aware you did a flyer drop. How many did you?
If you go back,
through, because you probably didn't see that.
I think it was 1,054 from memory. Next one.
Okay.
1,054. Yes, that was how many went out to 54 businesses as well, and they were hand delivered to the businesses, and Heidi went round and talked to every single business, and that was some mammoth effort.
Okay. Thank you. Further questions from councillors? No. Well, again, thank you, Trish, for your time. Thank you, Helen. I better thank you as well, Tyro. Just going to get there. All right. And again, council will consider and make some decisions based on what we've heard. Thank you very much. Moving on in the order paper, I'll remind members of the rules around conflict of interest, and I will state I've had a couple of questions that have come to me over the last few days around conflicts of interest, and I've given some advice to membership around that. But I'm satisfied that the rules are being met, and I'm satisfied that they are understood. I'm going to move item number 9, the Rangitikei River enhancement, forward, but I'll deal with the confirmation of order of business and confirmation of minutes first. In terms of other than moving item 9 forward, do I have anything else from staff, please, around the order of business? So Mr. Jones is here. He'll be talking about Mangaweka Bridge, which is an item I will move that to take place after the Rangitikei River enhancements. So it'll go from 9 through to 11. And I have a late item, a thank you card from the Friends of Tai Happy Society. It's a late item. That being said, now, is anything from councillors around change of order of business? No, we'll look to go and confirm the minutes, please. Looking for alterations and corrections, starting through on page 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Councillor Duncan.
Just amendment to page 1.
number 271 and 272, are they not the same? Sorry, yes, page 20.
I believe they are the same. I'm just intrigued then as to why they have a different movers and seconders. So is there an explanation for that? I didn't pick it up in the minutes.
We'll take the action to investigate.
Thank you very much. So we will note that as an action and a possible amendment to the minutes. 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Would somebody then like to so move, please? Councillor Ash moving, Councillor Duncan seconding as amended. Thank you. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving then forward into item number 9. This is the Rangituki River Enhancement Shovel-Ready application verbal update, and I believe, Roman, you're going to give us that. Would you like to come forward? I'll give you a chair. Just bring one forward. Now, councillors, there is a tabled document here labelled item number 9, the Rangituki River Enhancement. And the time's yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucia. Good afternoon, councillors. Just before I give you an overview of our shovel-ready application as it applies to the Rangituki district, obviously introducing Councillor Teckington, Horizon's Rangituki constituency councillor.
Sorry. I would have acknowledged you, John, councillor, if I'd seen you speak. Would you like to introduce yourself in your role?
Yes, I do. So, my name's Raymond Strong. I'm Group Manager of River Management for Horizons. And here to talk to you today about the River Enhancement Project. Give you a little bit of detail on the shovel-ready applications that Horizons submitted to Ground Infrastructure Partners. Status of the application, I guess the involvement that we would like from the District Council, and happy to take any questions at any point on any aspect of this. Was also intending to touch on a management strategy we've been working on for the Rangituki River, and again I'm happy to take any questions on any detail related to that. So starting from the tops, Horizons has 34 river management schemes across the region. One of those is our Rangituki River Control Scheme that extends from Rewa down to the mouth of the river. We have over the last 12 or 18 months taken councillors through a couple of workshops on our current management approach to Rangituki River and some of the vulnerabilities with our current management approach. Those vulnerabilities were really brought to a head back in 2018, where we were concerned that the river would carve itself a new course along several kilometres of stop bank on the true right, placing downstream the true right side of the river corridor. And that really prompted us to look at whether we're managing the scheme in the right way, and in particular looking at managing this lower reach of the river. We're fair to say we were part way through that strategy development. Had done some initial early engagement before lockdown came along and caught everyone by surprise. And as you will well know, one of the opportunities that lockdown brought with it was an opportunity to access central government funding through CIP requests for shovel-ready projects. So Horizons, two things. Horizons has been working with The sector being river managers nationally from Kaitaia to Invercargill over the last 2 to 3 years, with central government on funding for river management and flood control activities. It's a conversation that has ebbed and flowed a little bit, but that accelerated greatly early this calendar year in a series of workshops with different government departments in Wellington. And on the strength of that, Horizon submitted 5 shovel-ready applications to ground infrastructure partners, but we also came together as a sector nationally to put in a combined bid with $220 million again from Kaitaia to Invercargill. That, as you would have done as well, that went into ground infrastructure partners mid-April. We were confident, even though the fund was oversubscribed with applications from infrastructure providers around the country. We were confident that we stood a good chance of securing funding from central government. And in early July, the day before, Minister Jones visited Manawatu and Whanganui to make a series of announcements. Minister Jones and Minister Robertson announced funding for that sector application package worth around $210 million, including confirmation of funding for all 5 projects that Horizons had submitted as part of that one sector approach. So, we're pretty chuffed with that. To be honest, I'm having a bit of an oh God moment at the moment as to how we're actually going to deliver these projects. Just quite a bit of work involved, but from my perspective, obviously on behalf of communities, ratepayers, was a great opportunity and one that we couldn't pass up at the time. So we put forward 5 projects, one for Foxton, that's a project that we're working jointly with Whaiwhenua District Council on, flood protection for Foxton. There's a project for Palmerston North, which is about resilience of the flood protection system for Palmerston North. A fairly nominal amount for further improvements to our Lower Manawatu flood protection scheme. An application that Council considered in a public excluded session on Tuesday around a possible quarry over in the Tararua district. And obviously, because that was presented in public excluded, I can't talk too much to that particular project. But the 5th one, and as I said to Council on Tuesday, probably in some ways my biggest operational concern at the moment, our biggest operating risk, the Rangitikei River, and particularly that potential for alignment change in that Whanganui area. So that is a fairly high level application that was put together. It sought $5 million from the central government. We fairly optimistically asked for 100% of that. The total value of the 5 projects together was $35.9 million. And we're pretty happy with the outcome. The outcome is 75% of that as a grant. So it's $26.9 million of funding to Horizons to undertake those 5 projects. Fair to say with the Rangitikei one, we're still working our way through strategy development. We could debate whether it is technically shovel ready, but there are certainly aspects that in terms of in-channel river work, there are aspects that we're able to push the go button on pretty much straight away. There's other aspects that have a longer lead time to them, and we're hoping that we'll have the latitude with what will be the provincial development unit, the unit within NBIE that's been administering PGF funding. We're hoping that they will provide us with enough latitude to be able to progress the whole range of elements with this project at different speeds and at different places. So, as I say, it's a great opportunity, and it's a really good opportunity to not only focus on the enhancement of this lower part of the river corridor, but to build some resilience in this lower part of the river corridor as well. So I'm happy you wish maybe just to pause there and take any questions.
So thank you very much for that. And congratulations on the funding. Brilliant. Councillors. Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Just quickly, so very simple terms, what is enhancement and resilience look at? What is it actually going to do to enhance, and what are you going to do to create that resilience? What is actually?
There are 5 main elements that we're wanting to achieve. One is, without getting too much into the detail, the river corridor has reduced over time, and there's a package of work that looks to open up the river corridor, and on the true right side in particular, re-establish a stronger belt of protection plantings, but also focus on some native plantings as well too. So part of the application was focused on the resilience of the scheme, but it was also focused on biodiversity in a wider set of outcomes for this reach of the river. We have at the present point in time, and there's a fair income stream for the scheme. Most of the corridor along the true right-hand side between the river channel and the stop bank is Horizon's own land that's leased out. There's only a couple of exceptions to that. Unfortunately, that's the corridor where the river wants to cut itself a new course, and over time it will eventually do so if we don't do something. So a part of the strategy is looking at progressively taking that area out of pastoral lease and putting it into trees.
Thank you. I have speakers, Councillor Belsham, Councillor Ash, Councillor Lambert, Councillor Belsham first.
Yeah, thanks, Ramon. You pretty much answered one of the questions based around land ownership and does that funding provide for purchase of land that is under threat by the river? So you said there were a couple of privately owned properties that are under threat.
In that lower reach, there are, and yes, it does. There is some element of land purchase associated with that, and those are early conversations that we want to enforce. Appreciating that the management strategy that we're building at the moment obviously applies to the reach upstream of Savoy 1 as well. This application is just downstream of the Hills Bridge, so it focuses on the lower reach. So those issues that exist upstream are issues that will remain, and there is some tension there around what is a sustainable management approach for the river versus some of the land loss that's currently occurring.
And the other question was around Scott's Ferry, obviously one of our communities within our district. And does any of this work that is being done help protection of that community?
Yeah, which is a good question. We've obviously been, since 2004, working on upgrading standard of flood protection for the lower reach of the Rangitiki River. We have over the last few years been progressively looking at upgrading true right rather section of Stop Bank down towards Scott's Ferry. Haven't progressed that quite as quickly as we would have liked over the last few years, and there's a number of reasons for that. Our intention with the upcoming construction season is to complete that upgrade work, so complete the Stop Bank upgrade all the way down past Scott's Ferry. Now that's separately budgeted funding, that's not part of the shovel-ready application, but we're intending to run that in parallel with the enhancement project.
Thank you.
Councillor Ash.
Yeah, thanks, Rama. Forgive me for my ignorance, but if you're widening it, to me, I'm wondering what the impact on the environment will be, and how that's planned to mitigate, how you're planning to mitigate that potential damage to the ecosystem through the river.
The net benefit is a positive one to the ecosystem, and one of the challenges with a river system like the Rangitiki colonising pest plant species, weed growth on the river channel. So we, as part of our maintenance program for the scheme, have a regular program of aerial spraying. We're just in the process of hopefully renewing the resource consent to be able to continue that area of spring. But it's an ongoing battle with those colonising pest species. So we're really looking to give the river more room and to reduce the amount of, as I say, pest plant species that are colonising the river channel. But the main focus for this is about sedimentation that's occurring in the lower reach of the river. And if I were to draw you a cross-section profile across this part of the river, you'll find that where the river is sitting at the moment in the vegetation area, it's actually developing out of the crown. So the lower part, again, the least land against the stock bank is now appreciably lower than where the river channel is sitting. And all of that area, excuse me, all of that area with that vegetation is encouraging sediment deposition and build up over time. So it's building up and up and up. So again, if we don't do anything, it's inevitable that the river will carve itself on the course, and that will be fairly catastrophic.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. Well, just further along those lines, like rivers tend to have a mind of their own no matter what you do. Like your predecessor, the Cashman Board, used to spend thousands of dollars trying to divert it, and the next flood would shift it. So you must have an upper limit of widening, or like a certain cut-off point where it's got to put your hands up and say, well, if the river goes going to do that, there's nothing we can do.
And there's a little bit of that with the management strategy that we're working on. But giving the river corridor more width is a more sustainable management approach, and we end up fighting, if you like, less, for want of a better term, with the river in terms of constraining them to narrow corridors. So it's widening it out into a much more manageable corridor that ultimately will take less operating investment in the future. And with all of these projects, they're about investing money now and providing that operational benefit of return into the future. And this is a scheme that I have described to Council, Horizons Council, as being quite fragile, and it is quite fragile. I'm not, without denigrating predecessors, I'm not sure it's being managed in quite the right way with the nature of that river channel. Realising that river management is quite a subjective thing, but it's not a sustainable management.
I have questions, Councillor Dunn, myself, Councillor Carter, Councillor Dunn, and I'll also give the opportunity to ask if the Chief Executive wants some questions or clarification as well. If you've got time to think about that, Councillor Dunn.
With regards, thank you for coming today. With regards of Scott's Ferry, I've had a few concerns that with the completion of the stock bank, the water will actually root background and back into the village that way. I was wondering if there was any local community engagement there to either, if that's not the case, to let them understand that, or to have discussions with them.
I've had quite recently in Mayor Watson was there, we held our Rangatiki scheme meeting a little bit belatedly again, given the COVID-19 lockdown, and Heather Jingman came up to me at the end of that meeting from Scott's Ferry, who made the same observation. I've asked for staff to look into that, but I haven't had any. Well, I think like you, we're a little bit focused on long-term plan at the moment and putting together expenditure profiles and looking at the mix of work programs in our LTP, but it's obviously something that we're interested in, making sure that there isn't any backdoor for flood water to make its way.
So you'll go back to the community once that big water.
And one of the, if I can, one of the comments made with the scheme meeting was the impacts on adjoining landowners, and we're intending to run a couple of public meetings towards the end of the calendar year that will be specifically targeted at what are the main farmers along, who own land along the margins of the river, just so we can have quite a focused conversation with them around what we're proposing and what that means for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question from me. You indicated that you want to work with us. Is there an ask of us as a council? Now, what do we need to bring to the partnership or marriage?
The one component that I haven't talked about and it's an idea that I've floated with Council, with Horizons Council, is some sort of shared path along the true right side of the river. And again, if you start at the coast and make your way back to the Bulls Bridge, the land ownership is almost exclusively linked with Horizons, and it has for a while seemed to me to be a great opportunity to open up that corridor for public access. It's in part why the enhancement project has some land purchase associated with it, so we can make that corridor fully contiguous.
A supplementary question to that, does that indicate that some of that work or all of it could be funded out of the package of money that you've received?
Yeah, that's
Great answer.
Yeah. And it does. I guess just if I can, you should bear in mind that the estimate was based on me working at home over lockdown and with a strategy that was only partly complete. So I'm the $5 million we get, I believe, get us a big chunk of the way there, and it will certainly put us a fair way along the path of that vision. But that doesn't, could we somehow preclude us from coming back and having a conversation if we end up a little short in terms of whether there would be an opportunity for the District Council to contribute to that.
I understand that there's a codicil that's put on Robin the Mill in contract. That's not the correct term, is it? Councillor Carter.
In reference to your right-hand side, are you referring to the Rangitikei side of it?
Yes, I am, which is what I did.
And you were talking regarding the flood banks, work on the flood banks. Is that starting from up in the level that's about Darrenpool Road and where they breached in the old floods?
Yeah, so the upgrade work is starting at the upstream end and working its way downstream. As I say, the section to be complete is around behind Scottsbury, and that's the work that we're hoping to fully complete this summer.
So with the Scottsbury area, you're looking at dredging the river? Because you can't widen it.
No, so the good question. So the widening and opening up of what Tuna River Fairway is really just down to that bend above Tangi Moana there. So you're right, there is quite a lot of sediment accumulation in the lower reach of the river, but it's not our intention to fight nature in that regard. That's a natural process. I guess all we try and do is influence those processes rather than.
With your widening, sorry, questions here. With the widening, you're referring to the green areas on that graph.
Yeah, well, that I should have explained at the start. This is just a straight visual from our asset management system. So the stop banks are marked on it. The blue spots there, I think, are culverts that come through our stop bank, and the green are our planted protection areas along the river corridor. So, as I say, it's really setting all of that back to give the river more room.
And what's the yellow line?
What's that?
What's the yellow line?
I think the orange lines in there are leased land crops. I'm not sure what the yellow line is. It's just, as I say, an overview of our asset management in that lower region.
Thank you. So when you say true right-hand bank, that's always from the source looking downstream. Any further questions? So thank you. Would somebody then like to move the receipt of the report? Councillor Belsham moving, Councillor Ash seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. I'll move now to item 11, which is, I think it's item 11. The Mungaweka Bridge replacement, whichever number it is, the tender award. Welcome to the table, John Jones. John, do you want to explain the technical title that you have, Shared Services? Because I always get it wrong.
Right. That's all right. Good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. I'm the roading manager for both councils as part of the shared services agreement. So I'm here today to talk about the Mungaweka Bridge. We finally got to. Okay. All right. So, I'm here today to talk about the tender award for the Mangarekka Bridge. This paper has been through the Manawatu District Council, and they've approved it. The bridge is a shared bridge, so we're here today to see if we're going to build the bridge all the way across the river, not just half. So we'll take the paper as read. I would like to point out on the 3.1.4, the lowest tender was joint venture between Emmett, Stringfellows and Dempsey Wood. The tender allowed for alternative methodology for some elements of the bridge. So Emmett's have put in a tender that just complies with the tender documents, and that was, they were the lowest price one, and that was for the 7,169,000, etc. But they have put forward a methodology where we could use precast deck panels. They suggest that there might be a lower risk methodology because you're not casting in situ and dropping concrete into the river. But it will need to be evaluated by a structural engineer to make sure that the dynamics and the weight and all that works. So fingers crossed that that option is a goer, and it will be 6.8 million. But once we've done the analysis, if it's not a goer, it will be the 7,169. So for this purpose of this meeting, is we'll go with the 6.8 plus 16% contingency. If it goes to the next level, then you can try and manage it within the contingency.
Before we move to questions around report, would somebody like to move that the report be received? Councillor Hero, Councillor Gordon on the score sheet. You pass. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Questions. First of all, I'll just make the observation, it's a pity that our council can't pay for the whole thing and charge Manawatu with the difference in fare rates. I accept that.
Yeah.
In terms of the road, because the bridge is being built 30 metres downstream, will there be any anticipated closure of the road to allow that connection, or will it be service as normal during the process?
There may be some disruption, but methodologies of all the tenders, there's no closing of the road.
Thank you. Take further questions of councillors. Councillor Carter, Councillor Belsham, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Carter first.
With the bridge being 30 metres off down, is the roading approaches to the bridge covered under construction?
Yes, it's all part and parcel. That's why Stringfellows are in there. They're excellent road constructors.
Just for the record, I have also checked with Emma Spate that the relocation of that is necessary around power poles and power points will also be part of the contract.
It's all part of it.
Thank you. Councillor Belsham.
Thank you, John. Thanks for the report. The figure here is the construction price, is that correct? So there's still a lot of other costs that come along with this total project.
There's a paper I brought some months back called the professional services. So
yeah. So after this contracted bridge price, what is there to come for the total project to be finished, or is this?
This is it.
Hopefully,
we don't strike something unforeseen and have to come back and say, "Could we have a little bit more?" But this is a very good price. This is below the funding allocation that NZTA granted. So we've got plenty of wiggle room. But the contractors Emmett Stringfellow and Dempsey Wood are very thorough, very professional. So I'm hoping that there won't be too much variation. But then again, you don't know unforeseen ground conditions, etc.
And follow up to that, so the total project cost, does that all attract the NZTA FAR subsidy? So as in every other aspect of it? It does.
Yes, right. So the professional services for the monitoring, supervision and quality assurance, that's all the paper that you've had before. Yeah. So that is showed the split. So you've got your FAR rate, and then it's 50-50.
Thank you.
Councillor Gordon, then Councillor Duncan, and then there's a clarification that's required around the Chief Executive. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Worship. Good afternoon, John. For those of us that have been on as council for a while, we've seen a process where when there were a number of competitive tenders, they were revealed to us in a public excluded environment. Just more often than not, just to reassure us that process was being followed. Has there been a policy change why that has not taken?
I've followed NZTA's contract procedures manual, which says when we give with the letters that the contractors get, they get the range so that you can protect commercial confidentiality. So they'll know what their score was for non-price attributes, and they will know the range. The same with the price, they'll know the range and they'll know the winning price. But having been contractor myself, as soon as the tenders are submitted, you phone each other.
Thank you for your question. I wasn't a trick one, I was just clarifying.
Councillor Duncan.
I can basically withdraw it. I see on page 59, my question was, did the 7,900,000 include the contingency? And I see it does here.
Yes.
So thank you.
The Chief Executive, any clarification?
And I was looking on page 58, section 3.12. And firstly, for my question, I do acknowledge that you have kept me in the loop through this process. So I have been aware of the work, and I thank you for that. Just on 3.12, in terms of experience and skills and stuff, in the winning tenderer does rate, I think if I'm reading it correctly, at one end of the scale.
That's right, but they're all really good contractors.
Yeah.
So you'll see that the premium on a $7 million job, there's 20 grand between them. So although they're on the lower end,
Okay, that's what that is.
it's only worth 20 grand. There's nothing between them. And the only reason that the other contractors get a higher score is because they've Fulton Hogan, Brian Perry, Brian Perry, Fulton Hogan, are really big firms. So when they put their relevant experience, they've done massive jobs. So these three are local. Emmett's is from Whanganui, Stringfellows is from Hamilton North, Dempsey Wood is from Auckland, and they bring in their contract administration skills to satisfy NZTA's QA requirement. So that's why the others are better.
I think we're starting to get into a discussion around a potential motion here, around the merits of the motion. Thank you for the question, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, one quick question, John, how are you going? I'm sure you'll be very much looking forward to the conclusion of the motions and recommendations, which are four of us, given the amount of time you've worked on this project. I do just have one quick question on the recommendation, which is number 3, about the contingency, which can only be utilised by the engineer's approval.
Yes.
At what stage is where it goes? And I understand that there's the FAR rate and the split between the councils. So when you bring that back down, we're possibly not talking huge amounts of money, but it's still 16%.
Yes.
At what stage would we as councils be brought to the attention that there is a potential use of a contingency going to be used, and for what reasons?
Well, so that we don't get held up every variation that occurs, we're asking you to approve the 16% now. We would be back if we went beyond that. This is standard procedure.
I think we'll deal with these because again, we're starting to talk about recommendations and just remind people that these are recommendations that have been put forward after a lot of work. Would somebody be in the position to move recommendation 2 or offer an alternative 2? Councillor Belcher, you're happy to move?
5.2 as in the order papers.
Had a seconded, was that you, Councillor Gordon? Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, it's a well put together report and yeah, it explains everything. And I'm sure the people of Mugaweka and surrounding areas will be pleased to see it progress.
Thank you for that. I've written the report with the auditor in mind so that when NZTA come along in 3 years' time, as they will, we go through this with a fine-tooth comb. It's all there.
Can you speak through the speakers to the motion? Right, I'll put the motion to the vote, therefore there's no right to reply because there are no other speakers. I'll put the motion to vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item recommendation 3 involves the contingency. And would somebody like to move that or any alteration to it? Councillor Belcher and Councillor Gordon again moving. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No.
Questions around the motion?
Yeah, I've just got one question. It's just, and I understand why it's there, John. Forgive me for that, but which can be utilised only upon the engineer's approval. So that's one singular approval.
I will explain a bit more. So with the contract conditions are NZ standard conditions 3910, which allows for variations because it's a measure and value contract. The tender, when something happens and it warrants a variation, the contractor will put forward a claim for the variation. That will be examined and valued by the contract administrator, and then if it's approved by the engineer to the contract. The engineer to the contract is someone appointed to the contract, and in this case it will be Hamish Ball. And they're there as like the court of appeal. The day-to-day functioning goes between the contractor's representative and we've got professional services, so it will be that contract administrator. So things will be ups and downs all the way through. If there's a dispute, then under the contract, they can go to the Construction Contract Act, and which will say that they're entitled to be paid within 10 days, provided you've been caught for 10 years. 10 days, provided that the variation claim is appropriate. So it's just all part of standard contract management. And then why we have the contingency up front for the council to approve is to give us that amount so that we can get on with it. So that every time we have a variation, we have to meet those 10 days. We don't come back to council and say, hang on, we'll be back in a month. We've got to take this one to council. And then they take us to court with the construction contract.
I fully understand it. I just want to know a little bit of understanding around where the decision gets made when a contingency is used, and I think you've explained that.
Yes.
Just in terms of also note, the principal funder of this is not us. It's not even us shared with Manawatu. It's NZTA. And they have their own scrutiny processes as well. Unless there are any other speakers, do you wish to write a reply?
My right of reply would be that let's hope that we don't have to utilise the 16% contingency.
Right, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. And 4, that the council notes the cost of construction will be shared equally between the Manawatu and Rangitikei district councils. The question that I would have, the cost of construction is shown as the total construction cost. This is so we need to put in there something that recognises the percentages that are paid by NZTA. Because on one hand, part of the report says this is so many $1 million as a construction cost. And this, I just wonder if we need something in there.
Just from a finance perspective, you may have a response to that.
I'm happy to take a new response.
Thank you.
So what's shown in our annual plan is that we gross it up. So we show the our total expenditure, and we show as revenue and subsidies and grants, we show the revenue coming in from NZTA. So it does show that we meet the total expenditure. It's got a different, but it has a revenue source, which is not rates.
However, what I have to illustrate here is, again, I go back to my point. The report says this is the cost of construction. It only mentions an equal partnership between Manawatu and Rangitikei. So I just wonder whether we need something that says after the NZTA apportionments or something like that, or
could I?
Then that would complicate it because you've got a different financial assistance rate. The standard way of doing this is gross figure, because that's in your LTP, that's what it's going to cost. We get the invoices, we split them 50-50. Manawatu District Council pays, Rangitikei District Council pays the total sum, and then in that monthly claim, they get the NZTA share back. That's the mechanism. So I think the words are appropriate.
Could I suggest we add some words?
If you changed it.
I just wonder, in terms of answering that, whether the council notes the cost of construction will be shared equally between the Manawatu and Rangitikei district councils, and subject to their respective farm rates, something like that.
And subject to
noting that there will be a revenue stream from NZTA.
Noting there will be a revenue stream.
I'd live with that. Also move. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. You second it?
Yes.
Speakers, so I've probably spoken enough here. Any? I will no right reply, put it straight to vote. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you for the amount of time that's been spent on this over the last couple of years. We appreciate it.
Yeah, Jane.
You say pleasure. All right, sorry.
I didn't say a pleasure. We got 2 years to go. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. I think it might be the only occasion where a mayor might possibly get to open the same bridge twice. Moving to moving to the Mayor's report. This is attachment 2, pages 29 through to 33. And I would just like, putting forward this report, I just note in the press as much as anything that Councillor Kath Ash has resigned as Project Martin lead, coordinator, which is the right word. Yeah. Councillor Ash, you have been associated with a huge number of events that have been held in this district. They are part of what this district is. I personally, and I would like Council to acknowledge the amount of work that you put on the district's behalf. I wish you well and whatever you want to do. I'll take the report as read. I focus purely really around the amount of money that we have been given by government. Thank you, Minister Jones and others. And the implications around the district plan change and the three waters. Because I didn't want to cloud the issue with a whole lot of other stuff. Take any questions around the report. Or the questions around Mayor's engagement. So, Councillor Duncan.
Just in number 2, it says it's about halfway down. There is no compulsion to change our operation in the future. I just wonder how.
So this is with regard to the three waters?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we have done is we have signed an agreement with government to receive the first tranche of money, which will effectively be $4.8 million that comes to us as an authority. We need to use that with regard really to the three waters. However, it does not signal that we have to move into an aggregated model in the future. What we're saying is that we will agree to collect and forward data, and we will agree to party of discussions around what an aggregated model could look like. And that's hence my point. And because this is so important, if I've got this at all wrong, you're happy with what I've written in the report?
Yeah, absolutely right, and as we've discussed in the LTP workshops.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon.
No.
Oh, sorry, I saw the pen up. Any other councillors? Right, I'll then move that the Mayor's report and schedule be received. Seconded, Councillor Dunn. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Right. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. That takes us through to the rural and provincial sector meetings. Attachment 3, pages 34, starting there. And this is a report by Councillor Duncan. Just reminding people that when a councillor attends one of these types of events, they're obliged to provide a report. Councillor Duncan, do you wish it's your report? Do you want to take us through it? How do you want to deal with it? So you're tabling it as a report,
yes,
rather than taking us through it, and you're prepared to take any questions that flow from it. Councillors, questions on the report? I'll give you a minute to refresh your minds if you wish.
Just letting you know that
You've got a tabled report.
there's one.
It's going to go to that next. Perhaps while you're thinking of that, we'll also go to the tabled sector report from Councillor Dalgety, and we could take questions from either one of them. Councillor Dalgety, do you wish to take the same sort of stance?
Yeah, that's tabled.
Thank you. I mean, this certainly, Councillor Lambert.
Just flicking through, I was just wondering if there's anything Councillor Duncan thinks should be brought to our attention. She heard after attending the meeting, she felt was very relevant to our council.
And the one thing that I didn't put in, one thing I didn't put in that I was reminded of when other people made comments in one of the workshops is the concern that came out at the beginning of the 2 days from the mayors around the audit process and the auditors' actually capacity to deliver. They were all saying that was being held up. That was where there was a big hold up in the system.
You could ask a question through me if you like. Yes.
Ask the questions and update.
Yes, I'm quite happy to do that.
So in the last couple of days of the House sitting, there's been an extension on the reporting. So the statutory deadline for local government to report was the 31st of October. That's now back to the 18th of December to overcome that.
However, that doesn't deal with the issue around the low workload on audit in terms of the pre-consultation documents, the LTP. So it's still very valid concerns. Bearing in mind, council's audit is a very, very expensive process for this council.
So one of the things is that the Office of the Auditor General has acknowledged in relation to the long-term plan, there potentially could be issues in the capacity and the capability to actually meet reporting timeframes, and they are working through that, but they are advising councils that quality comes before time in an event like this.
Further questions? I have a question of both councillors. First of all, thank you very much for attending. It is useful. And secondly, the overriding feeling from me was the concern around the three waters, and that seemed to dominate the proceedings really for those 2 days. Is that your view? Yeah.
Just also to say that you might notice that both Councillor Dalgetty and myself have reported on that area. We felt that was one thing that we should both do.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Right, are you councillors, are you happy if we move the receipt of both reports as a block? Somebody would like to so move. Councillor Carter, are you moving? Councillor Dalgetty, are you seconding? Yeah. Do you wish to speak to the motion? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. We're doing well here, guys. That takes us through to item 10, the long-term plan update. This is attachment 4, pages 42 through to 52. And who was going to take us through that? Thank you.
Thank you, Your
Gordon.
Worship. This is a report that will now come to council every month. And once we've been working through workshops, obviously when I wrote this, we'd had 2 workshops and we've had a subsequent one this morning. But once we get further along those workshops and we actually make some decisions on certain aspects from those workshops, we'll make sure they're included in this report as well. So it's a reminder of what's been agreed to going forward. So I don't intend to go over too much because we've spent quite a lot of time lately talking about long-term plan, but just to let you know that that's the approach. And I have included some of the concepts as an appendix there, and we discussed those in our workshop, and we'll be following that through now to the next stage. But I'm happy to take any further questions.
Councillor Wilson.
Move the receipt.
Moving the receipt. Seconded. Councillor Duncan, do you wish to speak to it?
No, Your Worship.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Phil. That was quick, wasn't it? That, I think, takes us through to the Rangitikei District Council Meal Relief Trust Fund.
Sorry, for that, Your Worship. Item 12 of the Three Waters.
Yes, sorry, my apologies.
This is the delivery plan.
Yeah. So item 12, the Three Waters Reform Program MOU, proposed projects for the use of the stimulus funding. This refers to the 4.8 million, and it is in the table documents. Thank you very much.
Oh, this is
Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Thank
Your Worship. Now, I'm aware that you would have received this report now. It's tabled at this meeting, so you would not have had time to look at it. So I will quickly step you all through what the report says in short, as a bit of a summary. So really what the report is about is the funding package that comes with the Three Waters reform that was put out by central government. So in July 2020, government announced an initial funding package of $761 million that will be distributed amongst the different regions and territorial authorities in the country. They used a formula to work out who gets how much, and it was distributed in two parts. The first part goes straight to the territorial authority. The second part goes to the regional structure that then can decide how they're going to spend that money. For us in our region, in the Horizons region, it was agreed by all the authorities in the region that the funding will go back to the local authorities in full. So we are very fortunate because in our district, we have been working together for quite some time, looking at the reform and potential ways that we can work together to get the best outcome for the region. So when this happened, the discussion was really easy for us to agree on how that's going to happen. So what that means for us is the Rangitikei District Council will get a funding package of 4.82 million to be spent on Three Waters projects. It can be capital or OPEX, either one of the two. What I've done in my report, I then just quickly noted what it has to achieve. So the funding package would have to achieve. We would obviously have to sign the memorandum of understanding, and Peter Biggs would have taken you through that a couple of times, and we've taken that past track and the risk and audit committee. We then have to.
Yes, it's been signed and submitted.
Been signed and submitted. Thank you. We then have to enter into a funding agreement on how the money will be spent, and then finally, the Crown Infrastructure Partners will have or keep an eye on how we spend that money. That will be the agency that will look after it. The funding agreement sets out the rules. So the amount that's being allocated, funding conditions, accountability requirements, and reporting milestones. So those are the things that they will want us to report back to them. Now, at the back end of this, we then have to deliver to the Crown Infrastructure Partners a delivery plan of what we are proposing to do with that money, and then how are we going to propose to do it. So what I've done today, I've specified a list of projects that I've identified that we can consider for this funding. At the bottom of the table, just quickly, these are very important restrictions. The expenditure would need to commence before the 31st of March 2021, so that's really close. So they give you a bit of time to sort out design and tendering and all that stuff, but you need to get going. And then it needs to be completed by the 31st of March 2022, 12 months, that is it. Very tight time frame. So if we think of all the projects on our books in the 10-year plan, projects that are not included in the current annual plan, so it's outside of our normal works program, that have to comply with these, it becomes a little bit more restrictive. So the ones I've put up, I'll quickly take you through those. The first one is a contribution to a regional investigation fund that will look after non-reticulated water supplies. And that'll have a regional view instead of a local view, and it will include Marae and Papakainga. So that is for the whole region. And this is a proposal from Peter that all the TAs in the region contribute to this fund. We then can apply to a larger fund for an equal share and have a good look at how do we sort all of those smaller applications out. Then we've got a small amount of money in there for investigations and legal fees if we have to use it. The largest spend would be the Martin to Bulls wastewater pipeline. Interesting project because we've already done the design, we have done most of the detail, we have an engineer's estimate for the costs, we have most of that lined up. For us to finish that work off and just finalize it, is quite achievable before March next year. $3.5 million in the budget this year. We've got $1.5 million in the budget. Half of that, so the half of the $1.5 million will be spent on still investigations and a couple of other things we've got to nail down. We will take 1 million of that added to the 3.5 will give us 4.5 million, which is sufficient for the entire pipeline. The next one is the Bulls water supply rising main. So you'll be aware at the moment we have a contract for the new Bulls reservoir. We were going to use the existing rising main from the bores to the new reservoir. We are aware though that that rising main is not in good condition. We were always going to replace it somewhere in the future, and we thought this is the ideal time to do that. So we have a little bit of spare in the existing contract of about 200,000. We'll add that to the 800,000. It'll give us $1 million to put a new rising main in while we do the reservoir. The next one is the Papakai pump station upgrade. So at the moment you'll be aware we're gonna upgrade the Papakai pump station up in Taipi. It's a large project worth $1.5 million at the moment. This allows us now to extend the rising main that goes from that pump station all the way to our other large pump station, which means we could potentially push more water than what we would have been able to before we received the funding. So all up, that gives you at the bottom the 4.82 million that we've received, and this is how we propose to spend it. So what the report really asks of council is, if you consider the proposed projects we would like to put forward, do you agree with those, and would you allow us to put those forward in our delivery plan?
Couple of points from me, but first one is the recommendation. Could we receive the information? Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I should note Councillor Wilson is Chair of Assets, seconded by Councillor Gordon. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. In terms of just make comment around, so we're receiving this as a table document. There are some time frame requirements which probably meant that it needed to come to the council in this form. So just like councillors to be well aware of that, and perhaps it could be noted within the minutes that the time frame indicated that this should be a table document. The question from me is just a slight one of process, and I know it's jumping the audit round in the audit paper a little bit, but if you go to page 114 of the audit paper, which is the top 10 projects, and on the top of that page, it refers to a full briefing was provided to Assets and Infrastructure Committee meeting on the 9th of August 2018. And basically what it's saying is the preferred option was a land-based disposal process, etc. Dealt with it at Assets. I have absolutely nothing against the work schedule that you put. Just want to make sure there's clarification that was it referred from Assets and recommended as and adopted by council. So we started off with a whole lot of options. That was the recommended option, and I realise it was adopted as a sum of money in the annual plan, and that may be sufficient. But was there a link between the Assets meeting, which I can only recommend, and council for adoption? Do you know?
It's before I got here, so I do not know.
So just could I just ask whether that can just be checked, that we followed the correct process in terms of potential audit trails. Any questions around what I've just? No. Okay. Any questions around before we put the next section to a motion? Is there any questions around the options that have been proposed? Councillor Belsham first.
Thank you. In the work plan, so we've got allocated $100,000 to investigate the water drinking supplies from Malaya and Papakai. Have you had support from the region? Have you actually socialised the idea with the regional chief executives, and what sort of support have they provided? Are they similar sort of levels of support from their funding?
So I've suggested, I'll go back, given that the mayors have agreed that the full regional allocation be given back to the territorial authorities, I've now gone back and asked if we can challenge that decision and ask for a contribution each from each council. Of the people who have responded to me, I've had 100% agreement to that, but without talking figures. And I think out of the 7 CEOs I sent it to, only 4 maybe have responded. So it's unanimous thus far.
So we're leading by providing the figure,
yep.
And hopefully it's a suggested figure to the other councils.
So in one council's case, they had already resolved their work plan, their delivery plan, and they had a figure of 125,000 that they set aside for other assessments, miscellaneous,
yep.
And they pledged to divert some of that to this.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a further update and a question from me. The further update is that this was also an item that's been raised with Te Rupi Aka in terms of principle, and they support it. Yeah, okay.
This was actually a recommendation from Te Rupi Aka that we put to audit risk that they endorsed, and this is how we've implemented it.
Yeah, far better way to put it. The question from me, and I'll go to Councillor Dalgety next. The question is, the rural water schemes, such as Erewhon and Huntable, with the words non-reticulated, does that rule them out, or does that put them in? Because it could be described as they are reticulated schemes. And I don't think that's the intent, but I just wonder if we want a slight change of wording there.
So, sorry, the way I wrote this was a reticulated system is one that has tanks and pipes and things that you plug into a connection. So that is a reticulated scheme. So even if it's a rural scheme, it is a reticulated scheme. So non-reticulated schemes would be people that would have a tank at a marae to supply water to a large number of people.
Which would exclude the Huntable Rural Water Scheme, because they have tanks and pipes and reticulation. Yep. And I wonder whether they should be in this mix. That's where I'm getting for.
Right. Can I comment on your issue? So this is a request from Te Rupi Aka, and the idea was to link this with the 30 million of the 761. And the 30 million has been set aside, and I'm just quoting now from the Three Waters, for non-council rural drinking water supplies to help address the challenges these suppliers are facing in delivering safe drinking water to consumers.
Okay. Just bear in mind that Erewhon scheme does both, and also services potentially marae. Under the Act, it has that potential.
Oh, sorry,
Councillor Hira.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
So it's just going to clarification around the rural water scheme. So the Erewhon rural water scheme is largely for animal drinking water, as opposed to this is about people drinking water.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
Safe drinking water to consumers.
To consumers and people, not cows and sheep.
I would interpret it that way.
I might explain something further to you offline there. Would somebody then like to so move, please? Councillor Lambert, are you wishing to move?
Yep.
As a block that all of those recommendations were accepted. You, sorry? Yeah. So you're moving 2, you're seconding 2. Correct. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory to me.
Right. Any other speakers? Those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. It is 1 minute to 3. We are required to take a break every 2 hours. So council, I'll adjourn the meeting until 3:15. Is 15 minutes enough, councillors? Thank you very much. I'll adjourn the meeting. We're offline.